No. No. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Outstanding. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming out on a rainy day. My name is Marlon James. Doctor is not my name. It's just what I do. It's required to do my job. And people confuse that. My bio is in there. I'll tell you more about myself as we go.
Thank you, Dr. James. Good morning, welcome. Thank you very much for coming out today. My name is Doreen Richardson. As Gwen said, I serve on the Windsor Board of Education and I consult for SCCTN. I am a parent. I have 3 girls, 2 of whom are sitting over there. Don't believe that smile. So we are very glad to have you here today. We are very excited about this program that we've developed. We strongly believe in the concept of a community empowerment collaborative and what that means and what that implies. And so we look forward to sharing that with you today and hope that you will get the bug, get the energy, and we will work and do some great things together.
We're going into my 10th year of marriage with my wonderful wife. I have 3 children. So first and foremost, like Gwen and Doreen, I'm a father. And I take that very, very seriously. I was born on the south side of Chicago, single parent mother, 5 children. You know that the whole issues, all the issues you hear about in urban settings. School did serve me well though. I did go to 5 different schools between 1st and 8th grade, but somehow, I am who I am today. Much of that is attributed to I did have some really good teachers, Ms. Sims, Ms. Collins, Ms. Gracie, and name them. And much of my input and my wife's input into the 3K curriculum came out of, because my wife, her mother was a teen mom. Both of us college educated. Our mothers did some very unique things at home. And those experiences those skill sets that they taught us at home, much of it found its way into the 3K curriculum. So here's an overview of what we're covering today. We have quite a bit of time together. We're going to do some activities and we're going to explain some things. We're going to put some things into context. But we want to talk about the challenge we face. Then we want to describe some of the tenets of the 3K curriculum in terms of some of the social emotional skills that parents can work with their children and with their schools to develop over the course of their lifetime, as well as some of the academic supports that parents can provide and communities can provide at home in conjunction with schools. Then we'll sort of talk about the Community Empowerment Collaborative and give you guys a chance to collaborate, figure out how you want to support, as well as do some question and answering. So let's begin. Let's talk about the challenge we face. We're going to start immediately with an activity. So coming around are sheets of paper. Your goal, if you choose to accept, your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to use this paper to illustrate the conditions within the state of Connecticut that necessitates urgent response to save our children. You can draw a picture, you can paint a painting, whatever you want to do. You can draw charts and graphs to kind of use the collective expertise at your table, because we know everyone comes in here with quite a bit of experience around these issues. So we want to kind of create a collective understanding of what conditions necessitate us being here today. Then at the end of this 10-minute cycle, we'll give tables an opportunity to share what they did, and if you don't want to share as a table, we'll put the charts up on the wall, so during our breaks and things, you can kind of go through it and see what other groups did. So your task, again, first, just start with introductions in case people haven't met each other, and then sort of start illustrating what are the conditions that necessitate action to improve Connecticut schools. What required is around 1 minute per table. 1 minute per table. And I have my wonderful little iPhone here. And I'll start at 1 minute. And you know, I just give you the land the plane signal at 10 seconds and you should be landing the plane. So let's try to do everyone, so that way everyone will have a chance to share. How about that? So who would like to go first?
Heard the question to be is what situations in education in Connecticut has contributed to the crisis that we have in education in our urban areas and population. It does create challenges, but they're not challenges we can't overcome. So just the population and how it's distributed in general. Then high dropout rates is a situation that's contributing to the crisis. Funding, but we're not sure where that is in terms of the Black community, only because we have towns that are funding individual students properly. However, achievement rates aren't going up, so we need to figure out, you know, what that's about. Low expectations, and that can be anywhere from the household to the classroom to the administration to the school district. And low expectations as a part of all, or raising expectations to keep it positive. Lack of communication as well, and also, and my favorite, in the primary grades, children need to see themselves in the curriculum. If they don't see themselves, they will reject it from day 1 all the way to 12.
Thank you. That table listed a number of best practices. Who would like to go next? Outstanding. Remember, I do the land the plane signal around 10 seconds. Do the taxi to the runway.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Basically, it takes the entire community. The entire community includes everyone from the city hall to the infant. We need more businesses to get involved to support early career education. We need more of our professional sports teams. If they were to donate 1% of their gates in each state. More dollars for scholarship for college, seniors coming out of high school. High standards, don't settle for good behavior. I had a friend whose daughter in 8th grade took pre-algebra and got an A+. The teacher comment was good behavior. Did she get a grade on good behavior or work? Broken communication links. Teachers, parents, community admin, and Board of Education, because every time they close the school, they say it's about the budget. Skills, comprehension, feedback, parents, reading and writing. When you want the kids to comprehend what they're doing, not just give them a test and tell them if they pass or fail. Thank you.
I like that idea about the sports teams. We should pitch that. Who would like to go?
Good morning. Hello. Okay. What we discussed was there's a lack of information as far as communities are concerned. We also talked about there's no sense of urgency that trickles down from the federal government all the way down to your local school community. There's no sense of monitoring, no system of monitoring. You know, some schools are doing this, some schools are doing that. Who's watching over what they're doing and comparing notes? We talked about there's a disconnection between the communities. You may have, you know, a system in Greenwich that's doing well, and then you have a system in Hartford that's doing poor. And the kids from Hartford see how the Greenwich people live and say, okay, well, that's not us. And then the Greenwich people see how the kids from Hartford are living. So there needs to be more connectional type basis. We talked about the resources where everyone is on an even playing field. And then lastly, we talked about the jumping the ship mentality of, well, we hear the magnet schools are doing this, so I'm going to send my child to a magnet school. And then you're leaving the kids in public schools who are suffering because of what the parents are hearing. And our last point was just about if a parent doesn't have an education, that's portrayed to the child, and the child is saying, well, mom is doing fine with 10th grade education, I can do fine with 10th grade education. And that's a very big problem. Thank you.
From symbols, first of all, we say parenting. Parenting is an issue, and the parenting we mean is not just the single parents or the individual parents, but it takes a village to raise a child, and they contribute in their education and in their growing up. So parental support, community breakdown, all these are stakeholders in education, there's a disconnect. We talked about, you see the book, books are not there, services are not there to support students who are falling behind. Remediation is very important. Dollars, we have a lot of money or less money, that's the question mark. But either the money is there but it's not wisely deployed, or it is there but it's not put in the areas of need. See the eyes here, lack of vision. See the eyes, lack of vision for the politicians. And then some of the issues, early child disparity in terms of education show themselves up, either they're going to college or not going to college. Thank you.
We also had listed fear.
Well, if you look at this picture, you'll know that we also suffer from our artistic gap. This should be the state of Connecticut, roughly. And we are trying to piggyback off of Gwen's opening comments and not pick specific pathways to success, but to right-set our expectations about where we are today. So this is not a happy chart. If you went up into an airplane and you looked down on Connecticut, and you were able to look at Connecticut as a demographic map in many respects, you would see one of the most concentrated states in terms of some very disturbing statistics. You'd see very heavy concentrations of low income and low wealth people crowded into very small geographic areas. You would see very high unemployment in these areas relative to the other areas of our state. By the way, we are either number 1 or number 2 in terms of wealth across the country. You would have high racial isolation. Lots and lots of suburbs have extremely low percentages of minority residents. And it comes down to education, because education is the only way that we will actually bridge the prosperity gap. And so you see very distinctive and very different types of educational outcomes corresponding to these concentric circles. And so this is not meant to advocate for any pathways yet. Hopefully we'll get there today. But this is meant to right-set everyone's understanding by the state of Connecticut. Thank you.
No, that's 100% accurate. That's a condition. That is a condition. Segregation, isolation, those are conditions. And it's those conditions that ultimately would have to be solved. And everything else besides solving those conditions will be band-aids. But sometimes we just have to accept band-aids for a while until we can get closer to the solution. What group? Here, right?
So one of the first things we listed is the huge problem that we have the largest achievement gap in reading. And by the time students get to 3rd grade and we realize that they're not able to read, it's really too late. Proven to be almost impossible to catch up by that point. So I think that intervention needs to happen earlier for reading. Another issue that we discussed is the problem for a lot of immigrant families that students who are able to secure their U.S. documentation are not able to apply for financial aid to go to college or receive the in-state tuition rate. So, you know, that really stalls their progress when they've done really well in high school. We've also talked about how there's racism and negative perceptions of students by teachers, and a lot of this is because we think that maybe teachers aren't being given good enough training in cultural competency in their programs, and that's really lacking. And the last thing we touched upon is that we'd like parents to be involved in their students' learning, and especially, with reading competency, so that we should teach ourselves and our parents some tools to help our children.
Our group, we're kind of piggybacking on what you all said, but our group focused on economic disparity, the wealth gap between different school systems, and by that we kind of stick down, but meaning like enrichment during the summer months for wealthy students, and also even during the school months, they have better programs, not just going and having their homework done, and then after that maybe playing a few games or whatever, but actual programs that piggyback on what we've learned. Also, home education, it may be of some value, but not of high quality value. Responsibility and accountability of everyone within the community, not just the parents and not just the teachers, but your baker or your banker, the businesses throughout Connecticut. And then morals and citizenship not really taught or not really valued. Money is more valued than anything else. And TV use as a babysitter. So those are our pictures over there.
Yeah, that's good. We'll come to you guys over there. Are you guys at the last table? We have.
Some of us are a little bit more visually impaired over here, so we did the state of Connecticut, the map, and we just threw out a few buzzwords. First of all, I started with the map. Here's the Connecticut River, and which you're all familiar with. Here is Hartford State Capitol. And then some of the buzzwords, which of course a lot of you had already mentioned before, but we had government leadership, urban, suburban, financial implication, achievement gap, crime, poverty, CAP scores, higher ed partnerships, rural isolation, literacy, culturally diverse, expectations, skill sets, employment, high and low scores, de facto segregation, which we talked about, the chef situation, affluence, parenting, business collaboration partnerships, and since this is really about the children and about kids, we had put over here scales of justice, which I took from the postcard on the table, and also these are our children, and it's all about us, all about the children, and since I always carry a highlighter with me, when you look into children's eyes, children will tell you how they feel. So with this all being thrown up here on the state of Connecticut map, starting here with the golden doors and the golden Capitol, come down and look in a child's eye. It doesn't matter if they're 2 or 21, and they will tell you how they feel. So that sort of started at the bottom and worked its way down.
Statistic, and here we have our 8 have-nots and our 2 haves. And here is a poor drawing on my part of a bridge. What it takes to get there. We put some buzzwords as well. We need early literacy, family investment, advocacy, equitable education, cultural competency, communication, language, and language support as needed. And belief in yourself, belief on the part of your community, in you. These are all the ideal factors to bring us over to the have side. Here, in small parentheses, we have politics, or I would say policies, that are pushing people back and trying to keep people down, but we're hoping for forward movement. And here are some of the negative factors that affect or that challenge these have-nots to make it across the bridge.
I hope I don't cause feedback. I've been trying to stay away from the microphones.
we had a sort of similar idea. This is meant to illustrate the gap that we have in Connecticut and the fact that there aren't sort of the bridges that are necessary. So these are all of the kids who are starting out and they're standing on all of the things that could potentially be the obstacles that might lead them to not get to where we intended them to start out. That includes poverty, it includes language, counterculture that doesn't value high achievement in education, lack of accountability in the system. And then on the other side is sort of all of the things that we would hope that they would eventually get to, which include college, career, economic success, being able to compete successfully. And in between are sort of those building blocks that could create that complete road, that bridge that would get them across, that are in dotted lines because they're currently absent.
You still had 9 seconds. Shout out. Anybody else? One more thing? Everybody go?
Oh, the little ladies over here.
Oh, you guys?
Real nice little picture.
Well, come on.
Okay, so we were actually kind of literal when it said to illustrate the educational conditions. We just illustrated. You can't hear me? You can't hear me?
It's on.
It's on. It's on. Is it?
We just illustrated 3 of them. The first one, I drew 2 of them. And when I drew a school with no money, because schools have very little funding and it's decreasing every day. And another thing we drew was a poorly educated teacher basically asleep in front of the classroom.
I drew a school with a defibrillator around it, but it wasn't plugged in.
So that also tells us who can solve it, or who has to solve it. We have to solve it. The question is, where do we begin? The answer to that is in your sphere of influence. So if you're a teacher, your classroom, and then your school, then your district, and your sphere of influence. If you're a parent, your sphere of influence is your children. Maybe the PTO, then community organizations. As a professor, my influence is different. As a superintendent, as a congressman, everything's different. But it depends on your sphere of influence. Here's an analogy. I had one with the airplane, but I couldn't get it right before this morning. So I go back to my boat analogy. Imagine a boat in the middle of the water, in the middle of the ocean. The ocean is topsy-turvy. There's a problem. The problem is there's water coming into the boat. They've discovered a hole in the boat. The problem with the hole in the boat in the middle of the ocean with all the topsy-turvy winds and waters is that the boat is going down. Now, in that situation, if you're on a boat, you might say, self, what can we do? And you look around and you see people who are in different parts of the boat and they're arguing with each other. What are they arguing about? Who put the hole in the boat? Who's going to fix the hole in the boat? Who's responsible for plugging the hole in the boat? What's the best way to fix a hole? And you're going down. America and our education system is much the same way. Our education system is not keeping pace with the needs of our economic system. That spells disaster for any country. Look at any country throughout the history of modern civilizations. You'll find that as the economy collapses and they cannot keep pace with the preparation of a skilled workforce for the changing in the larger, to meet economic demands, then that economy, that society starts to unravel. We're literally in a crisis here, and we're blaming parents. You use the hole, you put the hole there. Parents are blaming teachers. Teachers, you put the hole there. Teachers are blaming the principal. No, the principal made me do it. Principal blaming superintendent. Superintendent's blaming policy. Policymakers are blaming Washington. Washington, God knows who they blame. BP. How about that? The point is, once we figure out who's to blame, we can also figure out who's responsible for fixing it. We make it very simple. Everybody's at fault. Everybody. So who's responsible for solving the problem? Who's responsible for finding a solution? It's all of us. So that helps us to move forward. Of course, teachers have some things they can improve on. Of course, parents have some things they need to. Of course, our kids have some things they need to improve. We need better policy. Yes, we do. We need better professors. We certainly do. So there's enough blame to go around. Now, one of the things, you guys, I wanted to provide a statistical context. And I don't like statistics. We have an understanding. I don't like them, but we have an understanding. Part of the reason why I don't like statistics is because you can lie with them. You can deceive, you can mislead. And there's also, you look at this chart this early in the morning, you say, what in the world is on this chart? So let me make it plain and simple to you. This is data from the National Assessment of Educational Progress. It's the national report card. It is the national assessment that allows us to compare state to state, urban districts to urban districts, suburban to suburban, across different racial groups, socioeconomic groups, etc. It is our major educational comparison tool, and I'm one of our most rigorous educational assessment tools, much more rigorous than any state assessment. State assessments, states are allowed to set their benchmarks for proficiency and goals. Many of them set them well below the National Assessment of Educational Progress. So it's important to look at how Connecticut students are doing. White Americans, African American, Latinos are doing on this rigorous national assessment. It'll take a couple minutes. You notice that the blue bars are white Americans, the spears, the orange spears are African Americans, and the green ones are Hispanics. You notice numbers on top. Those numbers correspond to the percent of students within that grade level that are below basic or below proficiency. In essence, what these numbers mean is that somewhere around 44% of white students in the state of Connecticut are below proficiency. So that's not good, by the way. That's not good. What it means, and this is in math, what it means for African Americans in both the 8th and the 4th grade, that somewhere around 8.5 out of 10 are below proficiency. 8.5 out of 10. The same is true for Latino Americans. So around 85% are below proficiency. What do you think we'll find in math or in reading? Around 8.5% are below proficiency. And reading at both grade levels. Same thing is true for white Americans, around 47.5. So what does this say to us? We have some work to do. We have some work to do. Trust me, if teachers could solve it by themselves, it would have been fixed by now, right? If parents can fix it by themselves, it would have been done by now. If a policy can legislate educational excellence, we have so many policies on the book, it would have been done by now. What the State of Black Connecticut Alliance represents, and the reason why I partner with them, is because they represent an opportunity to bring diverse people with diverse spheres of influence and diverse opinions and perspectives together at one table to solve a very complex problem. And that is really what we need. Next slide. Well, this is another important tool that the NAEP data allows you to do. These are scale scores. The average scale score, again for those racial groups, again for those 2 grade levels, and
this is math.
Math. So I'm gonna have to borrow my little PowerPoint over here because I ran some numbers to help me. Or what they can be interpreted as is sort of a grade level equivalency. So every point on the NAEP average scale score can represent a month of school development. Okay? So you're starting to get the picture? So what we find if we look at math, for example, if we understand the difference between African American and white Americans in the 4th grade, we find around a 31-point difference. Kids are out of school for 2.5 months or so. What does that mean? A 31% difference means a 3-year gap in the same grade level. That means that the average African American kid is doing somewhere in the 4th grade, are still struggling with 2nd and 1st grade math concepts. Is that starting to ring a bell now? Oh, not ring a bell, but I'm trying to help us understand the condition, why we need to act. It's 26 points for Latinos, so that's around a 2-year, a 2 years and 2 month gap. In math, as you move up, the sad thing is the gap accelerates to over 3 years, almost 4 years. Difference in the same grade level among our children. Now, with reading, you would expect that things will be better with so much focus we have on reading. And they are. The gaps are not as wide. What we find here is in the 4th grade, comparing African Americans and white Americans, there's only a 16-point gap, but that's around a 1.5 years, right? But that's a problem because we'll talk about that later. Now, what we also find among Latinos is very disturbing. It's a 33-point gap, a 3-year gap, right? And what you find consistently across Connecticut schools is if the school is struggling in reading, if you drill down far enough in the data, you'll find that it's Hispanic students, most of whom are in ESL categories. So the question is, if we know who the students are who are struggling, who need services, what should we be focusing on? What should policies be focusing on? We need to increase how well we do ESL instruction. Go back to that one more time. Now we move to the 8th grade. African Americans is 8.